Hey everyone, Shane here with eTrail.com. Today I have a 2023 Ford F-250 Super Duty. I'm going to walk through how to install the Airlift 7500 XL airbags. This is what our bags are going to look like when they're installed. What are some of the reasons why someone would want to put airbags on their vehicle or on their truck like this? A lot of times nowadays we see a lot of large fifth wheel campers being pulled. Adding airbags allows you to adjust the height of your suspension to not only support the load that may be in the bed, but maybe you have some, you're pulling a trailer on the hitch and it's causing the back of the vehicle to sag. What happens when the back of the vehicle sags, the front of the vehicle raises, steering gets light, braking is affected because now your tires are turning in and you don't have as much rubber touching the ground. Being able to adjust that ride height gets that vehicle back up to normal ride height, gets the normal pressure or the right amount of pressure on the front end, so that your steering is normal, your braking is normal, and it makes the ride a lot more safer and more comfortable for you and whoever's in the vehicle with you. Now a little backstory of why our neighbor actually installed them on this vehicle. He actually owns his own company and he plows snow. He often has a salt spreader in the back, which weighs down the back of the truck extremely bad. As I mentioned, it raises the front of the vehicle and it makes it unsafe, especially in snow because now your front end's light and your steering is affected. He wanted to add these not only to support that load, but also to give him traction on the front end when he's in four-wheel drive and he's plowing snow or salting. These are going to be double convoluted bags, which means it's a single bag, but it's going to have a steel band in the middle and that just keeps the bag from overlapping itself. We have a minimum PSI of 5. And you want to make sure you keep the minimum PSI in the bag at all times. It keeps pressure on the rubber and keeps it from deteriorating. We're going to have a maximum PSI of 100 and a load supporting weight of 7,500 pounds. Keep in mind that 7,500 pounds does not increase your load carrying capacity of the vehicle. And what I mean by that is if you, whatever your payload is in the back of the truck, if it is above 7,500 pounds, you can only go up to 7,500 pounds of weight capacity for the bags. If it's lower than 7,500 pounds, you want to go with the lowest number. So let's say the truck is only 6,500 pounds, you want to go with that number and not the 7,500 for the bags. They're going to come with roll plates for the top and bottom. That's going to help protect the bag. It's going to come with all the brackets. It's not going to require any drilling or welding. It's going to come with all the hardware to get them installed. The brackets are going to be black powder coated, so they're not only going to match the underside of the truck, but they're going to hold up really well against rust and corrosion. This kit is going to give you 2 Schrader valves. Actually, it's going to be one line you're going to cut in half that's going to give you 2 Schrader valves at the back of the vehicle. And what this allows you to do is allows you to air up each bag independently. So if you have something in the bed of the truck, maybe you have more weight on one side, you can add a little bit more pressure in that bag to help support that weight and get you back up to that normal ride height. One thing I recommend is if you're looking into an air compressor, we have many different options here at eTrailer. I recommend going with an air compressor because it's going to make it a lot easier for you. We're not going to have to find a hose and a gauge to fill up our bags at the back of the vehicle. With a compressor, we can do it from the comfort of the driver's seat. Now there's a couple different options for air compressors. You have a single, which basically eliminates one of these lines and gives you a manual fill valve in the back in case the battery in the controller goes out or something goes wrong with the compressor. You'll still be able to air up the bags. They mount outside the vehicle and it gives you a controller that you can sit in the driver's seat and you can monitor and adjust the air pressure on the fly. There's also a double, which basically you're still going to eliminate one of these lines. It still gives you a manual fill valve in the back for your bags, but the dual allows you to air up each bag independently. So again, if you carry a lot of stuff in the bed of the truck, maybe you have a toolbox that sits on one side and that bag needs more weight, it allows you to air up that bag a little bit more than it does the other one. As far as the installation process, it's not too difficult. The 7,500 pound bags are going to be, there's going to be a few extra brackets. If you are one of the bag that's a little bit easier to install, the 5,000 pound bag, is basically the same, except it doesn't have the upper bracket that hooks into the frame rail. Other than that, the driver's side can be a little bit challenging on this one because of all these lines and everything that are in here. But the brackets and everything go together pretty easily. The hardest part on this side, again with these lines, is getting this upper bracket installed with that plate and getting your bag in there and in place with this bracket in there, even loose, with this in there, getting your bag and whole assembly put in there right through the middle here. Because you're gonna have to go through the middle. You can't go through here, it won't fit through here. You have to use the center. So it can be a little bit challenging, but it can be done. It can be done with a few simple tools. You can do it in your garage. You can do it in your driveway even. I will suggest having a jack to separate the axle and the frame so that when you're putting the bags in place, you got a little bit more room. Other than that, a few simple tools. You can do it in your garage, driveway. If it's something you don't have the time or space to do, you can always check out our dealer locator, find someone near you that is able to put them in. If you want to give it a try, follow along with me and I'll walk you through how to do it. Start your installation. We need to remove our factory jounce pumper. We're going to take a 15mm socket. We're going to remove the two nuts that are holding the bracket in place. And we're going to take a flathead screwdriver. We need to pop this plate out with this bolt in it. Easiest way to do it, you can probably underneath the edge here, but if you take it, stick it right up inside like this, and pry it back, you can get it to pop out. So, right up inside like that. If you have trouble with it on the one there, stick it in there and pry it down like this. You're going to take these little nut plates, make sure that is facing up. If you look at the hole, you look at this one, both of them are the same. You're going to have a little cutout on one side. This one's going towards the front, the other one is going towards the back. We want this to go towards that cutout. So we're going to slide it in like this. And it might be a little bit tough to get it in there. Take a screwdriver like this and twist. That same thing this back one. You have to work with this back one just a little bit because it's almost directly over the jounce pumper strike plate. Work with it, you'll be able to get it in. Don't slide it all the way because we're going to be putting a bolt in that later on. We're going to take this plate, you'll notice there's a large cutout and an oblong hole. Oblong hole needs to go towards the front. This cutout needs to go towards the inside of the vehicle. So we're doing our driver's side right now. We're going to take these flange nuts. We're going to drop them down from the top. We're going to take these Allen head bolts. We're going to line it up, and we're going to thread those into that plate, or into those brackets we just installed. Once you get them tightened, you're going to come back with a 6mm Allen wrench, and you're going to torque them to the specifications and the instructions. And we're going to put our bag together. One side's going to have 2, the other side's going to have 3. We're going to take a roll plate with the 3 holes facing up. We're going to lay it down like this. We're going to take our air fitting. We're going to thread it in tight. First, then we're going to take 1/2-inch wrench. We're going to go 1.5 more turns. So 1, 1/2. We're going to take this plate, oblong hole, large oblong hole. I want the small oblong hole to be towards the front of the vehicle. So again, we're doing the driver's side. This square hole right here in the front, we're going to take the carriage bolt. We're going to go in from the bottom like this. We're going to set it over our assembly. Line up with the 2 holes that are left on top of the bag. We're going to take a hex bolt, a flat washer in each hole. We get these loosely installed right now. I'm going to take this plate. We're going to slide it as far forward as we can get it. Now I will tell you that passenger side I had to actually adjust this back just a little bit. They want you to tighten this and torque it now. However, it was sitting off of that plate we just installed on the frame rail. So we're going to go ahead and get it tightened down where the plate won't move. Once we set it in place, we'll make sure it's lined up, that we can pull it back down, and then we can torque those to where they need to be. 9/16 socket. And you don't want to over tighten these because the torque specs on them are not real high. And leave it just loose enough where I can slide that bracket if I need to. I can always put a little mark on it. There we go. Now we're going to take it, flip it over. Take our second roll plate. We're going to set it down like this. We're going to take this bracket. You notice the 2 holes here. We're going to use this hole, carriage bolt. I'm going to come in from the bottom like that. We're going to take this, set it right over the top of that. Take a flange nut. We'll thread that on and leave it loose for now. We're going to take these 2 of these really long carriage bolts. I'm going to come up from the bottom like this. Like that. You'll notice the 2 slotted holes right up here. We're going to set those and line them up with these 2 holes. But pay attention to how this bracket. We got the wide side on the back, which is going to be to the outside of the vehicle. The valve is toward the inside. What we want to do is we want to set this on here like this. And take another hex bolt, flat washer, and we need to thread that into the holes. We're going to take this plate and slide it as far forward as possible. So if you look at this bottom one, or this top one, where it's sticking out more this way, this is actually going to be the front. We want this bottom plate to go the same way. So it's going to be a little bit challenging, but try and keep these pulled up in there as you push it forward. And then we're going to come back and tighten and then torque these to the specifications and the instructions. In your kit, you're going to get some plates that look like this. You need to determine which size axle you have or what size it is. 3.5, 4, and so on. It has a little chart in there that tells you which ones to use. The number is stamped right here on the side to determine which one you're going to put on. Now it's going to tell you in the instructions to take a bolt, put it through that bracket, and then put this on. However, I found that it's easier to get your bag assembly in place in there first, loosely installed, and then come back and put this on and torque it later. With this sticking up like this, it's kind of a pain to get it all lined up, the bottom bracket lined up with the top bolts, or the top bracket lined up with the top bolts on the plate. This is easy to put on, easy enough to put on. We don't have to put it on right now. So we're going to hold off on that. Our bag assembly is basically put together. Now we're going to go in on our driver's side. We're going to move a little bit of wiring, some hoses, and install a couple of brackets there. Next, we're going to come to this bracket on our axle. This line here, and if we follow this down, where this connector is right here, we need to pop those off. So you can use a trim panel tool, a screwdriver, whatever you have. We're just going to pry those plastic connections off of there. We're going to take this bracket here, this fitting, or this connector, we're going to put it on the top of that bracket, and that bracket is going to get bolted right there. So we'll take hex bolt, go in like this. We're going to take our flange nut and go in back. This is going to be challenging because there's not a whole lot of space back there. I'll come back and tighten that down. 1/2-inch socket, we'll torque it to the specifications and the instructions. Once you get this tightened and torqued, take a zip tie this corner here to the bottom line here. It's going to help keep it out of the way. Then you're going to take an adjustable wrench. We're going to come to this bracket where we took the two lines off. And we need to bend this top portion here, this portion, back to where these are facing up. Make sure you're only bending this. We don't want to bend this whole bracket. So just what we have the wrench on. We're going to take this clamp, we're going to push it down on it like this. Line it up with that hole. We're going to take the small hex bolt. And go through and put on a flat washer and a nylon lock nut. We're going to take a 7/16 socket and wrench. And we're going to tighten it down. Once you install the bracket, line up with the hole, take the small hex bolt, put on a little small flat washer. On the inside, put a flat washer and a nylon lock nut. Then we'll come back, 7/16 socket wrench, and we'll tighten them down. So if you have a pre-installed fifth wheel bracket, which is this guy here, this rear bolt, we need to remove it. We'll take a 15/16 socket. We got to go from the outside of the frame rail, remove that bolt, and the nut plate. So next, this bracket is going to the frame rail. We have a bolt on this side, bolt on this side. 1/2 inch socket, we need to remove those bolts and pull this bracket away from the frame rail. We're going to take this stud here, got an Allen head side on one end, so make sure that stays out. We're going to leave about 1.25 inches hanging out. The back bolt that we took out, that threaded hole, this is going to get threaded into it. Take our upper bracket for our driver's side. It's going to have 2 holes on one side, a elongated hole in the middle. It's going to go over the stud we put in earlier, and 1 single hole at the bottom. It's going to be different than our passenger side. Passenger side is going to have 1 hole on one side, 1 on the other, and the bracket's going to be a little bit longer. And then the lower hole, it's actually going to have 2 holes instead of 1. We need to take this bracket, put it up on the inside of the frame rail, get it over that stud. Then we're going to take our factory fifth wheel bolt, hitch bolt that we removed earlier. We're going to put it back through the frame rail and through our upper frame bracket. Once we get it through, we're going to reinstall the nut plate. Make sure that this upper bracket, or this bracket with the lines on it, goes over top of the stud. And then we're going to put a flange nut on. When you go to put your airbag in place, the long carriage bolt on the driver's side is going to go behind the brake line, up close to the axle. On the passenger side, it's going to go to the outside of the line. So now we'll get this set in place. Don't forget, we have not tightened and torqued these top ones yet because we may need to adjust it. Once you got your bracket figured out here where you need it, this bolt's going up through this bracket. These, we'll be able to get those, you know, once we lower it back down, we'll be able to get that on. Then what you can do, collapse your bag like this, pull it like that, and you can tighten and then torque those two bolts to the specifications. That way you don't have to take it all the way back out. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and lower it back down. Everything is sitting in place. Then we're going to take a serrated flange nut. We're going to put it on each one of our bolts. We're going to take our U-bolt. We're going to go on the outside of our spring pack. On the bottom of it, there's 3 holes in this bracket. We want to go to the top one. You can put a flat washer on each side and then a nylon lock. I'm going to take this guy and make sure this rounded edge is up towards the axle. Slide it over these two. Put on a flat washer. Nylon lock nut on both sides. Like that. Now we're going to take a 9/16 socket and we're going to snug our U-bolt, the nuts on each side, snug them up evenly so that this sits flush or tied up against the spring pack. We're going to go ahead and install this plate. Take your last bolt here. We're going to slide it through the back of that. We're going to slide this over the top. That. Once you get that installed, you can come back and tighten it down. You want to make sure that that is fully tightened down. Now we'll come back and we're going to tighten these nuts up here on our lower frame plate. Once you got the 3 bolts on this plate tightened down, you can tighten the one for the front here going to our upper bracket, and then we're going to come back and we're going to torque them to the specifications and the instructions. And we're going to tighten and torque the factory bolt that we removed. Come back, we'll get these snug down. Try and get these as even as possible. You can do one of 2 things. You can cut these off, or you can come back with a wrench and tighten them up. Once you got that tight, we'll come back and we'll tighten and torque this bolt, which goes to that bracket that sits on our John's Bumper strike plate. Once you have your driver's side bag installed, if you haven't already installed the passenger side, the bag assembly is going to be basically the same with the exception of this upper bracket Passenger side is going to be a little bit different, as I explained earlier, and you won't have all of these lines you're going to have to move on the passenger side. The difference is going to be this lower bolt goes on the outside of that brake line, that I explained earlier. The only line we're going to have to move is this hose right here. There's a clip where the upper bracket goes in place. Just pop that off the frame rail and make sure you slide the bracket behind it. And then on passenger side, you're going to have 2 factory bolts. If you have a factory hitch, you have 2 factory bolts that you need to remove. When you put that upper bracket back in, then you reinstall those 2 factory bolts. Other than that, we'll put our heat shield on because our exhaust runs right here, and then we can run our lines to the back. For your exhaust shield on your passenger side, you're going to get 4 clamps, 1 big one, or 2 big ones and 2 small ones. You need to pull them apart like this because we're going around the muffler. We're going to have to tie these 2 together. So it doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to put those together and it's going to make 1 large clamp. Similar to that. I'll go ahead and get my clamps kind of snug up here where they'll stay on. Take our heat shield, go about halfway down on this tab. Actually, we'll bend it like this first, all the way down. Halfway on the tab, we're going to make little ears, kind of like that. I'm going to take 1, and we're going to go in between the bag and the exhaust. And we want to put the clamps around those ears. Airline tube is going to come in 1 roll with 2 ends. Take these 2 ends, your Schrader valves, put them together even. Pull it out, find the center. Cut it in half. It's going to give you an even line for each side. For your passenger side, you're going to have a heat tube that's like this. We're going to slide it onto the end of our hose here. And take your line and make sure the end is cut even, so when you just cut it, make sure you look at it again, make sure it's cut even and it's not pinched. We're going to insert that into the valve on the top of the bag. When you insert that, you need to push it. You're going to feel kind of a little pop. That's how you know it's inserted good enough. Once you get it in there where you feel that pop, give it a little tug. Just to double check and make sure. Once you got it inserted, take that sleeve and slide it on there. What it's doing is it's protecting the line from the heat from the exhaust. And we'll take the rest of this. We're going to route it where we're going to have our valves out of the back of the vehicle. There's a little clip right there you can clip your hose into, or your airline. I'm going to go over the top. I'm going to make sure we're staying away from anything hot or moving. Get it over the top of this because our spare tire is going to go back in here. We have factory wiring that runs here. So we can go right along that. I think we're going to come right out the back here. So any extra line you have, go ahead and zip tie everything up where you want it to be. But any extra you have, it's better not to cut it off the end and just loop it. Do a loop in it. That way, if for some reason it leaks later on, you can always come back, cut the end off and reinsert it in the bag. You don't want to have a line that's too short or it's not going to reach. So we're going to leave that hang like that, and we'll do our driver's side. Now to mount your airlines, I'm just doing this temporarily because I'm going to be installing an air compressor, so I won't have both lines back here. But if you're not putting an air compressor on right now, this is an option for mounting your Schrader valves. This is just a 4-pole bracket. I drilled out the holes so they fit their valves in with a couple of pipe clamps. Mounted it right to the hitch here. Another option that I like doing is, since I'm only doing this temporary, I'm not doing it now, but your license plate bolt holes, you can actually take the bolts out, drill that out just a little bit, just enough where you can fit that Schrader valve through there. And then you can not only use it to air up your bags, but you can use it also to hold your license plate on. It stays up and out of the way, so you won't hit it with your foot if you're trying to get in the bed of your truck. But to put your Schrader valves on, you're going to take one of these nuts, thread it on, take the star washer, slide it on, slide it in like that. You're going to have a rubber washer that put on, another flat washer, and another nut. And we can come back with a couple of wrenches and we'll tighten those in place. Once you get those tightened down, we're going to add about 40 to 60 psi in each bag. Then we're going to check anywhere our lines are going into a fitting for any air leaks. Easy way to check your lines is take some soapy water in a bottle. You're going to spray where that line goes into that fitting. And what you're looking for is little bitty bubbles to form. So we're good there. But also check the fitting that goes down into the bag. Make sure you're not getting a leak there. And we'll do the same thing to our passenger side. Once you've got your lines installed, you've checked everything to make sure you don't have any leaks, you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at installation of the Airlift 7500 XL airbags on a 2023 Ford F-250 Super Duty.